Curious to know how many of you have gone through trauma. I, 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 I took this test called the ACEs test, which stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, and I found out that I was heavily traumatized, and I didn't even know it. And what I learned about trauma is that it's really bad. It can kind of throw you off a lot in your decision making. And since we talk a lot about the economic side of things, I wanted to talk a little bit today about financial trauma responses, just what they look like, how to identify them, and more importantly, how to address it and fix it. I think that this thought was spurred because I saw a video where there was a woman who said something that was really interesting, um, and probably true to for to some extent for sure, where she said that the best thing that Black men can do to help Black women heal is to heal themselves, right? So she was talking about relationships. And as you all know, money and relationships are deeply connected. I always tell y'all how I suddenly became handsome when I started making six figures. So money and relationships are deeply connected. Money is the number one cause of divorce and things like that. And she mentioned something that was true. And I said to my wife, I said, she's right. She's right. I said, everybody needs to heal. And hurt people, and trauma. And the worst thing to do when if you have healed is to be around somebody who hasn't, right? Because then they're only going to hurt you, and then you're going to have something else to heal from, right? It's almost like being muddy. Like everybody's born. A lot of us are born in the mud, and then you go take a shower and you get nice and clean, and you're wearing a nice suit, and then somebody comes along and they just splash mud all over you. So now you're muddy again. And I agree with her statement. But one of the things that I thought about was I said, I think that that healing it's true for everybody, right? I think that I think what I said to my wife is I said, well, why don't we just say everybody needs to heal? Like what and maybe the assumption was for her that she's already healed, and I get that part, but it didn't sound like she was really talking about what she could personally do in terms of healing herself or choosing healed people to be around. And I told my wife, I said a more comprehensive way to look at this, in my opinion, would be to say, okay, first thing I'm gonna do if I want the world to heal, I'm gonna heal. You don't want to fall in that trap. I don't know if anybody's ever heard this saying where they say that everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change themselves. Give me a yes. How many of you have heard that statement before? If you haven't, let me know. I'd be curious to know how many of you have heard that. And I thought that was really profound. That everybody wants to change the world, but don't nobody want to change themselves. And I thought about that. I said that's so true. And there's a psychology theory connected to that kind of. We've talked about it a little bit called self-attribution bias. And self-attribution bias means that we tend to take responsibility for the good things we do, but we don't take responsibility for the bad things we do a lot of times. It's very easy to evade accountability when something bad happens because the world tells you that it's not your fault and that you're a victim and all that. And sometimes you are a victim, but sometimes we can go overboard with victimhood, and I'm not really sure. I took a. Let me just tell you, I thought that being a victim was gonna like actually help me pay some bills. So I went down to my landlord when I was 28, and I said, I don't got no money, but I got 20 pounds of victimhood. Will that pay the rent this month, sir? And he said, no, because victimhood doesn't pay bills, right? And then I went to the grocery store and I said, I can't afford your eggs, but I got a whole basket cart full of victimhood. Will that buy me some food today? And the grocer said no. I mean, because he probably racist. That's what he probably racist. And I every time I try to take this big bowl of victimhood, because they serve it by the pound, right? You go to any local politician, go to any, you listen to anybody who kind of, really wants you to stay right where you are. They'll give you lots of victimhood, but I found last time I checked, victimhood doesn't solve any problems, and it doesn't actually help you. It doesn't pay. You can't pay bills with victimhood. That's racism. That's what it is. And what I realized was I said, okay, maybe there's a better strategy. Maybe there's another way I can approach this. Maybe I can say, okay, I got the victimhood, but I know this ain't gonna pay no bills. So I'm gonna just put this victimhood over here, and I know it's there. I know I might have been a victim, but then I'm gonna grab a big old fat handful of accountability, and I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna carry that with me in my pocket. And what I found was that my accountability allowed me to realize a couple of things. That when it came to things like healing, it's before I start complaining about the world. I start looking at Boyce, right? Before I start talking about what he did, I started talking about what I did. And thank God for my parents. My parents were always like that. They were always, let me just tell you let me tell you what happened to me one time. It was one, I was a victim, y'all. I was really, I was 11. I mean, how much dirt can you do at 11? I had a raggedy ass cousin. And let me tell you what this Negro did. We went to the store and we go in the store and we were 11 and we didn't have no money. So I think I got a pack of now laters because you remember now laters are like 10 cents, 15 cents or something. That's all I could afford. And I don't know what he got. We walked out of the store. This Negro pulled two big king size Snickers bar out of his jacket. And I know he couldn't afford two king size. It was the big, the big gigantic king size Snicker bars, right? And I'm like, how did you buy that? And he said, well, I picked it up. I stole it. And so now here's the thing, right? I'm not a snitch. I ain't nobody snitch. So I was like, well, I wouldn't have stole it, but whatever, right? And he gave me a piece of the Snickers bar, so I was officially in possession of stolen property, but I didn't care. I was 11. Well, this let me tell you what this SOB did. He gets home, his mama finds out, somehow she finds out that he stole the Snickers bar. And do you know what he did? He said, I did it. He blamed it on me. That son of a bitch. So so she calls my mother because she's deeply concerned about the fact that I manipulated her son into becoming a thief and tells my mother, I think that Coco stole the Snickers bar at the store. And now here's the thing: my mama knew me. And my mama confronted me with it, and she knew I wasn't no thief. I wasn't gonna be up in the store trying to jack no candy bars. And I said, I did not do that, mama. Like that's wrong. I said I want justice. I was like, this ain't right. I'm gonna get on the phone. I want to call his mama and tell her the truth. Tell her what really happened. And what was really, really the big dilemma in that situation, to this day, I have not solved this puzzle, but it's really made me think. To this day, I still don't know if her solution was right. But you know what my mother said? She said, you should have took responsibility in the moment. You should have told on him right there in the moment. Now, again, I'm still not a snitch. I ain't gonna lie. I didn't, it's not like it changed my behavior, but it did give me another perspective, right? It did sort of say that sometimes even relentless accountability, even it can be empowering to some extent, even if you're wrong. Because what it kind of introduced me to was this: it introduced me to the fact that if I try to come back and say, well, I had no choice, my mother was the person who said, no, actually, you did have a choice. You just had a difficult choice. You had a calculated risk on either end. You could either lose a friend by snitching, which I mean, come on, like, who wants to be a snitch? Or you could sit here and hope that this secret remains between you and that he doesn't go and pin you for the crime. You understand? And what that experience did was it didn't really make me change anything because I told you I wasn't a snitch before that, I wasn't a snitch after, but at least let me know you always have a choice. You understand? You always have a choice. You always, no matter what happens to you, you have a choice. You have a choice on how you're going to respond. You have a choice in how whether you're going to heal. You have a choice in who to have around you. You have a choice in everything. And so I found that even though sometimes you feel like you don't have a choice in situations, by concluding, see, look, you leaving, babe? Where where you going? Oh, okay, babe. All right. But it's my wife's birthday. Happy birthday! I love you. Anyway, so it's her birthday. We did the whole breakfast in bed thing and all that. So so here's my point. This gets back to the whole trauma and healing thing. Is that learning that you always have a choice, or at least approaching every situation by figuring out like what choices did I have, even if they were bad choices, really goes a long way in terms of being empowered. And so when you're talking about trauma and you're talking about money and you're talking about dealing with traumatized people or dealing with bad decision makers in your space, there's always a million different things you can do. So when she said that black men can heal and that will help black women, I couldn't help but to retort and say also, well, you do know that also black women healing can help black women, and black women healing can help black men. And also, if you are a healed person, you also then have a choice of deciding whether you want an unhealed person around you. right? And that requires some due diligence, as with every investment you make, except in this case, you're investing your love and your time and your energy. Every investment requires research, time, and due diligence. You cannot escape the importance and the power of time. So when you make hasty decisions, whether you're talking about a hasty decision to buy a stock or a hasty decision to date a man or a woman, either way, you're making an investment without doing your due diligence, which exposes you to added risk. Risk is encapsulated primarily. Remember, I'm not speaking as a person who has an opinion on risk. I've spent years and years studying mathematical scientific research on risk. A lot of risk is incorporated in a couple of different areas: time and information. And time and information are connected. The more time I spend with you, the more information I can get before I decide if I want to invest in you. If you're a startup founder and you want me to invest in your company, well, there's a difference between me knowing you 5 years versus me knowing you for 5 months. Because during that time, I've picked up information about you and I've been able to gain a more accurate risk assessment of you. I've been able to reduce the variation in my assessments. I can hit the bullseye or the arrow on the bullseye a little more effectively because I spent time just observing you. And when I tell you that looking at investments in this way is critically important in everything that you do, I'm not just talking about money. Sure, when you buy real estate, take your time because you get locked in a. I don't know if you've ever seen somebody get locked in a real estate deal they couldn't get out. That's the thing about these deals. It's very easy. They make it really easy for you to give them your money, but they make it really hard for you to pull your money out. So before I put my money in, because I know about things that we talked about in this class, like moral hazard, which means that the minute I give you my money, I'm giving you my power because money is power. That's why you got to stop giving white folks all your money, unless you don't want to be powerful, unless you want to be powerless forever. So because I know money is power, if I'm in my right mind, I do my due diligence to take time before I give you my money. No, I'm not jumping in the real estate deal just because you gave me a 1 hour sermon that had me jumping up and down out of the seat. No, I'm not going to invest in this business just because you're telling me that, that we're cool and that it's going to be a great idea and it's going to transform the black community and make $1 billion. No, I'm going to do due diligence. I'm saying, let me think about that. Let me send me the information. Let me dip my toe in the water. I'm not going to give you 50,000, but I'll start off with 2,000. What can I do for 2,000 just so I can know how this is going to work? And so generally speaking, when you go back to that trauma and healing thing, I want to connect the dots here so you don't think I'm talking all over the place. When the lady talked about trauma, I started thinking about the undiagnosed, untreated trauma in our community. I started thinking about financial trauma responses. I'm about to give you a list of ways to know if you have financial trauma responses, how trauma can be very costly in terms of not just the emotional pain, but the financial pain as well. A lot of people lose money because of trauma responses. I'll explain that in more detail. But I also thought about trauma being linked to risk, and trauma affects how you view risk, right? And your goal when you make a decision is to not avoid risk. Risk is inevitable if you are an investor, whether you're investing in financial markets or investing in people, right? I invest in people. I invested in my wife by choosing to marry her, right? So trauma affects risk assessments in these investments, but also risk, once you want to minimize that calculated risk to make it what we call efficient. In the financial world, we call that efficient risk. When you minimize your risk, you still take a risk, but it's a calculated risk. It's not a crazy risk. And risk is minimized through information and time. And time and information are cousins because the more time you spend analyzing something, the more information you have. For example, many of you that have taken a class from me, some of you I know for a fact sat there and you watched me for 5 years before you decided to make a move. And I'm all for it. I'm here for that because it gave me an opportunity. It gave me 5 straight years to show you that I know my stuff, that I'm very consistent, that I'm not going to go nowhere. Tell me if you agree with this. Tell me if this is you, right? So ultimately, time and information are connected with risk assessments, and traumatized people have to know this because you get traumatized when you jump into something head first. You jump into a swimming pool head first, and you don't realize the swimming pool ain't got no water in it, and you crack your head open, and then you say, that's why I hate swimming pools, because every time I jump in one, I bust my head. No, you did not take the time to look over the edge, make sure that there was water and not acid, and make sure that before you jump in that pool that you're not jumping into something bad. We jump into stuff, especially when you talk about relationships. Oh Lord, I'm not gonna get into that. But you talk about investing, same thing. I see lots of people investing in a way that is just flat out crazy. And then they lose money and they say, here's why I don't invest. This is why the stock market is bad. No, the stock market is not bad. that person that financial influencer you were listening to, that was bad because you didn't take the time to realize he ain't even got a bachelor's degree in finance, but yet somehow you think he's a money expert. And God bless you for that. I hope it works out for you. I'm done talking about that. I'm going to move to the next point. Before I move on, by the way, I wanted to mention, I forgot, I was told to mention this to you, that we're doing another cohort in stock options. It's called COIN, Certified Options Investing Network. So if you want to get certification in stock options, which I think is going to be amazing for you, you're going to love it. You can go to drboycecoin.com. The new cohort's going to be soon. And tell them that you're a member of Money in the Morning. And for the next 15 people from Money in the Morning, they're actually going to cut the tuition, I think, in half or something. So I don't know what the discount but they said we can give a discount to the people that are in Money in the Morning. So go to drboycecoin.com and talk to someone. Let them know you're a member of Money in the Morning, and they'll give. I think they'll reduce everything substantially. So just talk to them and see what they have to say about that. All right. So with that said, let's talk about financial trauma responses and what financial trauma responses look like, so you can identify them and you can nip them in the bud with your favorite therapist or whatever, however you want to solve this problem. All right, so so here's the deal. Here are some financial trauma responses. I want you to ask yourself if you have experienced any of these things. All right. So one trauma response for people who've been financially traumatized might be avoiding money entirely, avoiding like maybe you get bills, you don't open your bills. You know your credit score is bad, so you don't even look at the credit score. You don't talk about finances because you don't want to talk about how broke you are because maybe it's depressing. Anybody ever gone through that? I've gone through that. I know what it's like to like just be in denial. Like, man, ain't no point in me even thinking about this issue because it's just gonna ruin my day. Number two, this is another one I have. Overworking or hustle obsession. Constantly chasing income with a fear driven by fear of being broke or repeating past financial struggles. I think that's a big one. Anybody like work extra hard because you don't want to go back to the way things used to be? Almost like a former inmate who says, I ain't going back to jail. I ain't never going back to jail, right? Because being poor is like being in prison. It's terrible. I'm kind of like that. I've always worked hard. But I'm kind of like a proud workaholic. I kind of like the fact that I work a lot. I don't think it's so bad all the time, but yeah, I see. Ain't none of us perfect. God is still working on all of us. All right. What else? Chronic underspending. Like, so if you're really frugal with money, really extremely careful with money because you don't want to lose it, they say that's a trauma response because you've been traumatized by being broke. Impulse spending or retail therapy. So when you use shopping as a coping mechanism, maybe you spend money because it makes you feel better. I've never really gone through retail therapy per se, but I've seen people that when they start feeling bad, they want to spend money. It's almost like picking up a beer or something. All right, so let's see. Number five, fear of investing. That's a big one. Taking calculated risks. Traumatized people have a really hard time taking risks because you're so scared to death of losing. Risk has at least two components. Either it's like it has the upside, it has the downside. So if you have what we call in finance, we talk about what you call these things called utility functions. So if we can look at it mathematically. So if your utility function is what they call concave, if it's like sloped a certain way, you really are what they call risk averse. Risk averse means that you don't like to take risks. So it means, for example, if you think about that show Deal or No Deal, if you remember on Deal or No Deal, they used risk aversion to do their calculations. And what they would do is they'd say, which would you rather have, a 50-50 chance to win $1 million or $100,000 cash? Right now, if you take zero point 0.5 times a million, it's 500,000. So a risk neutral person, meaning a person who doesn't care about risk one way or the other, they don't love it, they're not afraid of it. They're gonna make the deal for 500,000. They would take 500,000 because that's the what they call the expected value. That's the average between the two numbers. But a risk averse person will take much less than 500,000 because the reason they'll take a much lower number on Deal or No Deal is because the fear of loss exceeds the desire for gain, right? And so the shape of the utility function affects how you feel about risk. So, for example, wealthy people, they'll take that bet. Like they wouldn't take 100,000. If a person's already got 10 million in the bank and you say, okay, you got a 50-50 chance of making another million, a lot of wealthy people will say, okay, I'll take that chance, right? But a lot of people who are struggling or poor or who don't have any money will say, you know what, a bird in the hand beats 10 in the bush. So I'm going to go ahead and take my $100,000 so I can at least have that instead of taking a chance, right? So ultimately, and if you study things like stock options, you know that this is big in the world of stock options. So the way you view risk is huge, and it's kind of a personalized thing, but at the same time, I think you've got to really kind of process whether you're going too far to one extreme or the other. So sometimes with a lot of Gen Zers, because they're young and they're energetic and they have all this courage, they'll take excessive risks. If you listen to how a lot of Gen Zers invest, a lot of y'all got kids that are Gen Z. There's some Gen Zers in here. I think you got to be under 28 to be a Gen Zer. The Gen Zers, they tend to look at things like NFTs, crypto. They do a lot of day trading because it's like rolling the dice. Especially your sons. Your sons might get on DraftKings and literally think that they're investing because they bet on the Chicago Bulls winning a game last night, and they have what they call risk-seeking behavior. They love risk, and because young people they like to take chances, but unfortunately sometimes that could be what they call inefficient risk. Inefficient risk is the type of risk that's more likely to leave you broke than it is to leave you successful and wealthy. And so as you get older, though, people's risk tolerance goes down. Elderly people have the lowest risk tolerance, so it kind of depends on your perspective, but also your age and stuff like that, and also your background, demographics, all these things. Male, female, they're different as well. All right, so last couple of things. If you have secrecy about money and relationships, so if you hide purchases or hide income or just hide money in a relationship, that becomes a real touchy thing. I've seen people talk about maybe women in relationships hiding money, hiding a personal stash just in case something goes bad with the relationship. I'm not here to judge that one way or the other. I understand it. And then you also heard about men doing the same thing as well. But it's one of these things where there are therapists who say that that is a bit of a trauma response in the sense that it's a bad experience that you saw. Maybe you saw your mother go broke because your father left the house, and so you say, "Well, I gotta always have my own. I gotta always have my own money." And believe it or not, as quiet as it's kept, and I don't know how my wife's gonna feel. My wife, the therapist, she, despite the fact that I make enough money for both of us, and money, I don't really mind sharing my money with my family. She refuses to leave her job, right? And her job, and I say, well, babe, like I made the annual salary from your job like in a 2 week period. Like like we're okay. We're gonna be fine. Growing up, she just was super frugal with money, and money was tight. And so she just doesn't feel comfortable not having her own income. So I think sometimes some of these trauma responses, even though they could be defined as trauma responses, I feel like sometimes it's kind of common sense. Like I don't know about y'all, but I don't like getting hit. If I get hit in the head once, I don't want to get hit in the head again, even if that means I'm going to be extra careful. And so I don't think a trauma response is automatically bad. I think trauma responses are bad when they hurt you and they put you in a position that you don't want to be in, right? Like if you find that retail therapy is going beyond making you feel a little bit better and pushing you to the point where you got credit card debt that's unsustainable, then I think it's time to address that. If you find that another trauma response is low financial self-worth, just not feeling worthy of wealth. That's a big one. I think I was really shocked by how many of our people just don't even feel like they're supposed to be financially comfortable. They feel like they're supposed to be in a struggle. And some people even approach relationships that way. They feel like if you're not struggling, then that's not real love. That's not really a relationship. And that's when you probably need to go sit on that therapist chair and figure out like why are you torturing yourself just so you can go through what you think is the right experience. And so I think that this is my verdict. This is my opinion. It's not a perfect opinion, but it's an opinion. Um, I think a financial trauma response is bad if you decide that it's bad. Like if you decide that it's holding you back from being the person that you want to be. Like for example, you say I want to be an investor, but I'm just so scared. That's a trauma response that's holding you back from being the person you want to be, right? If you find that hyper independence makes it difficult for you to form healthy relationships with other people, then maybe that's something you got to think about in terms of like, why am I doing this? Where is this really coming from? And is this even logical for me to feel this way? I think overworking and the hustle obsession. I don't mind the fact that I work my butt off. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of being a hard worker and a consistent worker. I think to me, that's an honorable thing, based on where I grew up. But if I get to the point where I'm old or and I can't work as much, or let's say I've got things going on like family stuff, and I'm neglecting my family in order to feed my obsession with consistently working, then that's when I need to do a reassessment. And this is me being honest and open about my experience. Like this is me being transparent about what I went through. In my 30s, wasn't nothing blocking me from getting my work done. Nothing. Nothing. I literally went to Syracuse University. The reason I picked Syracuse University as my first job when I got my doctorate was because Syracuse has nothing to do. Syracuse is a dead city. There's nothing to do. It's dead economically. It's dead socially. It's the weather is even dead. And I just wanted to have a place that would keep me focused so I wouldn't be distracted. I didn't want to live in New York City or Philadelphia or Chicago where I would have a lot of stuff happening and it would keep me from getting things done. My number one obsession at that time in my 30s was to be the greatest economist on the planet. And so I would just sit in there and I would just work on research papers for 12, 13 hours a day and go to bed, get up and do the same thing the next day. And that was just me. That was what I wanted to be. I wanted to be like a Michael Jordan of finance. I wanted to be the absolute best on earth at what I did. And I became pretty good at it because of that. But I think that what I also realized was I said, I don't think I want to live like this forever. I don't think I want to live in this dead little city until I'm 70 and not enjoy life. So I think about when I hit my 40s, I said, okay, I'm too old to be living like this now. So I moved to Chicago in order to have a more well-rounded life. And that was a strategic plan. And that kind of worked for me. I mean, I made the big mistake. I told you, I admit it. The mistake I made was I didn't stop and like get married and have kids. I probably should have did that in my 30s. Because by the time you get in your 40s, you're like, man, I ain't trying to have no newborn baby at 45, right? But at 35, that was probably the one mistake I made. But outside of that, in hindsight, I don't regret it because I was able to set a good foundation for the rest of my career. I really know my stuff in this area because I just dedicated thousands of hours to really refining my craft, right? But here's the thing: if that had made me unhappy, if I'd found myself, depressed from that experience or feeling like I was really missing out on everything and that was bothering me, then that would be the time to pull back. Right. So it's okay to be extreme in certain areas. I really believe that. I believe being extreme in the areas that you care about is okay. If you want to be an extremely good mother, extremely attentive father, go for that. If you want to be extreme about your working out at the gym, you're the person that wants to have the big muscles, go for that. If you know why you want to do that, I think that's okay. I think it becomes bad when it becomes toxic to the other parts of your life that end up mattering, when the toxicity or that hyper focus spills over too much into other areas, right? So it's okay to be obsessed with your financial knowledge, but it's not okay if it ends up costing you your relationships, cost you your physical health, cost you your mental health. Because I know a lot of people who have a whole lot of money who are fat, sick, lonely, and going crazy and drinking themselves to sleep every night just in order to cope. That's a person, in my view, who needs to sit down with a therapist so they can find a reason to unlock the other parts of who they are, so they don't end up just killing themselves. So that would be my 2 cents on the financial trauma response. In terms of a comprehensive recommendation, I really think that financial literacy goes a long way. The more you know about economics, remember I told you that risk is related to information and time. So if you spend time reducing your risk by getting more information, meaning that you're studying economics regularly, like you're coming to this class every day, maybe you're taking some other classes with us or someone else, that's going to really help you in terms of how you process risk and when it comes to investing and financial decision making. The more awareness you have, the better you're going to be at it. Financial awareness is critically important to the point where I'm really shocked more people don't talk about it. But financial awareness is just consciousness, being able to look at the bigger picture, knowing all the different options that are out there. Your children, your grandchildren should be financially conscious. You should make sure that they know all the different ways to make money other than going to filling out a job application. So that awareness goes a long way. Two, therapy. I think therapy is the best if you ever want to just be a better person, right? I really think that if you if you're just waiting for other people to get therapy, or you just think you're perfect and the world is flawed, your blind spot is massive, and you're just gonna be disappointed a lot. And so therapy is great because therapy did a few things for me. A few things it did. One, it helped me understand me. The more I understand Boyce, the more I can optimize who he is and what kind of man he needs to be. Number two, it helped me understand people, right? I can identify when somebody is like, when they're doing it, when they're issuing a trauma response. And I can make a decision like, okay, what does this person need? Do they need to be listened to? Or maybe I just need to avoid them. Like you kind of know how to tiptoe around the world because you black. I mean, it's trauma is the undiagnosed psychological STD that is rampant in the community. If you ever want to see it, just scroll through the internet for about 10 minutes and you're gonna see somebody's fighting in the street, somebody, trying to stab a baby and just whatever, right? You're gonna see crazy stuff. And then and the other thing, what else did it do? Um, yeah, it helped me learn how to resolve disputes and conflicts. You learn how to just understand what's really happening and what somebody's really saying to you and how they're really feeling. And then and just knowing how to like make it work out without allowing specific triggers to take place that are going to escalate the situation and make it worse. So I think therapy is just the best. I think listening to therapists just help to understand how your brain works and how your body works will make you successful in everything. It'll make you better at money for sure, because people that have a level head are able to make more money. And Warren Buffett is notorious for having a level head as an investor, and he's made billions of dollars from it. It definitely helps you in relationships because it makes you less of an asshole. Um, and you're better able to kind of pick people who are not assholes. And then also it definitely helps you, and obviously in your mental health, that's a given. And also physical health helps because all the studies show that people who have trauma that is undiagnosed and untreated, they die earlier. They get all of the diseases, the diabetes, the strokes, the heart attacks, the hypertension, all the things that kill black people. Traumatized people are far more likely to get those things. So I would encourage you to consider healing to be probably the most important thing that you're doing in your life. It's definitely more important than that little job you got. Whatever job you, I'm not making fun of anybody's job, but I'm telling you, like getting up and going to work at that job is what you're doing maybe in order to pay bills, in order to survive. But that's not going to get you to the promised land. That's not what's going to help you to prosper in this world. Jobs are designed to help you just have enough money so you can go shopping and stuff, and pay your rent. So anyway, that's my thought for today, and I hope that this helped you. I really do. And just a reminder, if you want, I have a book. It's called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, and I mention it every now and then in case anybody's new and or they want to just you want to dig into it in the summer. If you want to form like a family book club and stuff like that, we actually in our stock market investing class, I think there's a training in there on how to start a family investment club. I think this summer is a great time to do it. Also, as you know, you guys know, we have a lot of tools for kids. So if you want to get a copy of my book at the discount price, and I'll sign it. I have literally a few hundred autographed copies left. If you want to get me to sign the book and send it to you, then just go to 10commandments.boycewatkins.com. 10commandments.boycewatkins.com. You can get a discount on that. It's for you guys only. And then also we have financial flashcards and workbooks for kids. So you can go to financialflashcards.com. We have flashcards on real estate, entrepreneurship, investing, crypto. We also have flashcards on stock options now. So feel free to take a look at all that. And of course, last but not least, if you want to get on the text list for this class, text the word morning to the number 87948. So text morning to 87948 on your phone, and I'll send you a link to join us. So have a great day, everybody. God bless you. And in addition to my wife's birthday being today, Dr. George C. Frazier, I think his birthday is tomorrow, and he's having his 80th birthday celebration in New York City. So I'm going to go up there and wish him a happy birthday because I have so much respect for this man. And there are just these people in our community that should be more famous than every rapper, more famous than every person, that we see anywhere on television. And Dr. Frazier is one of those people. Dr. Claude Anderson is one of those people. Dr. Julianne Malveaux is one of those people. I can tell you, if you had people like Dr. Anderson, Dr. Frazier, and Dr. Malveaux sitting down with, 10, let's say 14 years ago, sitting down with Obama and talking to him about Black economic policy, you would have seen a major transformation in Black economics. You would have seen a multi-trillion-dollar shift in economic outcomes. And so, to me, the day that our politicians are really working with us is when they actually invite people like that to have a seat at the table. I don't even care if I sit at the table. Sure, if they invite me, I'll contribute. I did talk to the Obama administration for a while, but I'm admit I don't have a lot of patience for politicians. It kind of got on my nerves. But I really think that there's a difference between real solutions and fake solutions. So I encourage you in your life, find real solutions. They really do exist out there. There's no reason you should be broke. There's no reason you can't elevate the next generation. And what I really want to empower you to do is to realize that you have the juice. You have the juice. You have the juice. You have everything you need to go up in your family. You just got to have the right attitude and the courage to just say, we about to change this. We about to do this. Especially if you are a mother, if you are a father, if you are a son. Like all people really need is they need a leader, and they need a leader that's close to them, not somebody on TV, not a rapper, not a politician. They need you. You are the leader that you've been waiting for. So go in there and lead. Just go in there and just say, hey, I think we should all figure out ways to make money. Who's going to argue with you about that? Who's going to disagree with you if you say, how about we get together and love on each other and figure out a way we going to get some damn money up in this family and take our family to the next level, and they're going to remember us. That's what I'm talking. That's what I want you to do. And I want you to do it now. Tomorrow's not promised. So do it now. You got everything you need. I'll have your back. I'm gonna be here every day. Bring your cousin and them to this class if you want to. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't got to pay money. You just got to pay attention. And I guarantee you that it will elevate them far higher than anything they ever learned in college. And a lot of them are still paying student loans. So, but there's no student loan with this class because you can just come in. All right. So anyway, I'm out of here, guys. Have a great day. Thank you so much for listening. You'll hear from me later on in the day as well. And I'll see you all tomorrow morning. Take care. Bye bye.